This episode of the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast is sponsored by Jamie's Designs, your one-stop shop for custom laser creations, gifts, and home decor. Looking for a special present for a loved one? Stop by Etsy at Jamie's Designs Shop, or visit us on Facebook or Instagram by following the link in the show description, or type at JAMIESDES on your device. We are making your laser dreams come true. Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with Emmett Muckles. Here is where you learn about you, that you are a billionaire. You might be wondering, whatever. As I've said in countless 200 plus episodes, 30 days into your inception, you were over 1 billion cells and you hadn't hit the planet. So you are a billionaire because you've only multiplied like the multiverse since then. Anyway, let's get down to it. Today, my guest is Luis Gonzáles. He is a communications consultant, coach, and trainer with more than 25 years experience in helping improve business outcomes for organizations. His skills are direly needed today because we are going through a transformational phase, not only from generation to generation, but we're going through one in the solar system as well that is causing our consciousness to shift. And when that happens, we get into a babble situation where we don't know what the heck is going on with the other person. What's going on, LG?
Good to be here, my friend. Couldn't wait for this moment. Thank you for having me.
I know, man. We've been back and forth. Like, you were like, I got something to do. I was like, I understand. And then I was on an 8-week travel binge, and I was like, I just can't do it. But actually, I was closer to you than I thought. I was in Las Vegas.
Oh, super close. 3-4 hours.
I was like, I should have just drove over your house and we could have knocked it out with masks on.
Definitely.
All right, sir. So,
Yes, sir.
You are a communications guy.
Yes, sir.
Driving learning initiatives, incorporating effective communication, cross-cultural communication, soft skills. These are all parts of the trainings that you do.
Yes.
Now, why do we have to work on our conversations? Because I know it, and I understand, but I'm just being the devil's advocate here. I know what I'm saying. How come you don't know what I'm saying?
So why are we talking about this?
Yes.
Because communication is the source, from my perspective and from my experience and just observing life, communication or lack of or incomplete communication is often the root cause of a lot of our problems.
Yeah.
Relationships, business, misunderstandings. And then when human beings like us don't have all the information needed and we're not engaging in the conversations and getting curious and trying to get the information that we might need, what do we human beings do with those blank spaces? We fill in those blank spaces with assumptions, or we make up stories, and then we know what happens then. So that's the short answer.
But how did you get into this? I mean, let's go back.
Okay.
So we were talking, first of all,
Okay.
ladies and gentlemen, his name is Luis Gonzáles. And when I hear Luis Gonzáles, I hear a deep voice from somebody south of the border, or maybe somewhere else. But I have an impact with the Latinx or Latina, or tell me your story, my man, because I when I hear last names, I like to know where the origin of that came from.
I'm with you. I'm the same way. So with that, I'm a second generation U.S. American born in Los Angeles, California. Mom and dad were born in Los Angeles, California. My grandparents on my dad's side walked here from Mexico back in the day when you could do that. And they began immediately to pick in the fields whatever California grows. all year long, from south to north, following the harvest season, from plums to peaches to raisins to whatever they picked. My grandfather lived the American dream, got the job with the grocery store. After that, I don't want to say the typical story, but we've heard these great stories of immigrants that come and they eventually settle in and they buy a house and they raise a family. My dad was the product of that story. He was not born in the fields, but he was a little baby in the fields on my grandma's shoulder picking potatoes. And my dad is now a PhD. So I'm a second generation Mexican-American. And I was born in Los Angeles. I was raised in a not so well known town south of Los Angeles called Compton, California. I was raised in Compton, California. So,
straight out of Compton.
Absolutely. Straight out of Compton. Compton is probably where you could call my roots are. I was from the time I was a baby to the time I left when I was 18. So I grew up in a multicultural environment, in a multicultural family. What I mean by that is my parents separated when I was young and both remarried African-American spouses and had children. So I have mixed brothers and sisters, Blaxican and half white. They call themselves, they identify as Blaxican, that you will ask them what that is. I'm Blaxican.
Hey, I was in a meeting today and a young lady said she was Blasian. And I was like, right on.
Hey, identity, man. I'm not going to call it, how do you identify? So that's how they identify. So that's my story. So back to communication, right? I have always been, since a child, number one, a talker. They couldn't get me to shut up. So I've always been a communicator and always asking why. Why do they do that? Well, they do that because, why? I've always been interested in why other people do what they do, how they communicate. I've always been interested in other languages. I speak Spanish, I speak Portuguese, and a spattering of some other words in other languages. So I've always been interested in this whole idea of communication, and in particular, how different people in different cultures communicate. So, for example, growing up in a Mexican-American household in Los Angeles, California, Compton, California, with my grandparents, it's a Latino, Mexican-American, but in the United States kind of a culture. There's a certain way we live, we eat, we talk, we relate with one another. And I'm able to switch my mentality as soon as I step outside the door into the United States world, the American cultural world, and act or talk a different way. It's kind of natural. So I've always been interested in what it is that breaks down in the communication, what it is that brings together the communication, especially when people are from different cultures. So I'm very interested in that. That's where the start came from. I can tell you more a little bit later, but I eventually traveled the world, got interested in, other languages. And even when people are speaking in English to one another, but they're from different cultures, how that cultural filters the language and can cause for miscommunication too. So I'll pause there.
We're in a weird space right now. And whenever you're in a growth spurt, it's going to be weird. Even if you're a kid, when you go through a growth spurt, you're gangly, things don't work right, you're in pain. Same thing with our society right now. We're going through this growth spurt.
Painful.
And what's really the point of this that will help us all out is effective communication. And particularly in the workplace, because the workplace is, for one of the first times that I've ever really seen, they seem to be serious about diversity in the workplace. With that comes different mindsets and different cultural mindsets and different modalities of communicating. So what makes work conversations worth the while in this day and age?
Well, I'll start with just work vibe in particular. If we're, and now we're in COVID, right? So we're working remotely, a lot of us, and we're at home. So maybe it doesn't apply as much, but it still does, because it doesn't matter. We're still usually working on teams, or part of a team, part of a larger team, part of an organization, unless you're an individual, owner of a business or something, right? Yeah. So in terms of communication, we should at least, if we don't agree on certain things, we should at least have good relationships. Relationships are key. When we have good relationships with one another at work, in the business, on our teams, and when there is a level of trust, our productivity increases, our happiness increases, our results improve, we have less stress, we like what we do better, we cooperate more, we get more done. It's more like it's just like a positive thing. Now, relationships are key. in the workplace right now, this is bubbling up. These discussions that we're talking about, diversity, race, microaggressions. I'm working on some projects right now with some clients with the company that I work for, Fierce. We're developing trainings, simulation trainings, to train their employees on how to like even start the conversation, because they know that the conversations are bubbling up in the public arena, if you will, right? And so they're bubbling up in the workplace too. But if they're not brought up to the surface, those conversations take place in other ways, and they're not productive. They take place in back rooms. They take place gossip. They take place in ways that are not healthy. So these organizations, and this one in particular I'm thinking about, they're like, we have to at least start talking about this. We have to start looking at our management, our high-level management. What are our biases in hiring and in promoting? So we have people, I want to say people of color, but it's more than that. It's just, if you know what I mean, there's lots of groups of people who feel that they are not given the same opportunity in terms of their promotion and their career growth, and they suspect it's due to their race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or what have you. So the leaders know now it's already come to the surface in the public arena. It's out there. We have to address this, and we got to air our dirty laundry. Not air our dirty laundry, but we got to look at ourselves in a real way and now really start getting serious about this. These trainings have been going on, as you and I know, for 10 years. I don't know. And people.
Oh, they've been going on for longer than that. I can remember back in the 80s.
Okay.
There was similar stuff, not to this degree.
Not but it was a tick the box. Okay, HR got the training done. We did that, and then we go back and status quo.
Yep.
It's different now. So now these conversations are important. These conversations are crucial. And now my experience has been, I don't have the data to back it up, but before COVID, I was traveling the world facilitating trainings and consulting. I see a difference now than when I did 20 years ago. Companies are more diverse. Not as diverse as perhaps I'd like them to be, but they're more diverse than they were 20 years ago. So now organizations, I think, leaders, I believe, are realizing these are our people, and we need the diversity of thought. We need different perspectives. That's going to help us make better decisions. And so people, I think, are starting to realize that. They're like, hey, this is actually an asset. But how do we start having the conversation? That's the tricky part. I'm afraid to have the conversation. I'm afraid to bring it up. I'm afraid I might offend somebody. I'm afraid if I share what I'm really feeling, I might offend somebody, hurt somebody, be called a racist. There's all these fears. And so that's where I feel we're at least in my world. That's where I'm at right now. Okay, we know we need to have these conversations. There's a lot of fear and hesitation around it. How do we do it in a productive way, knowing we may not agree, we may have different perspectives? So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah. But, there's a mindset shift that is required. And so if you look at Instagram, if you look at TikTok, yes, I'm on TikTok. If you look at any of the platforms, there's this avant-garde reporting done by the public, because everyone has a camera today. And there's a lot of sharing of information, misinformation, but the Karen has popped up. And the Karen has a sort can come off strong, but then have a victim mindset. How do we break out of, and I'm just using this as an example, how do we break out of this victim mindset when we're confronted by these uncomfortable situations?
I don't want to speak to the Karen issue in particular, but I'll speak to the victim mindset. Talk about.
I didn't mean to like me. See, now that was something. See how we just handled that. He's like, I don't want to speak to that. And it's really that simple, what you just did. But that was what came to mind about some of the situations that happened. But go ahead and speak about the victim mindset.
Yeah, victim mindset, we often I'll speak for myself, find ourselves in victim mindset. This sucks. This is awful. I didn't ask for this. What is going on? And here in particular, we've all seen life has thrown us some curveballs. We may have all had some plans for this year, and those plans did not happen, right?
Yeah.
So for me, the way I look at it, and the way we train it is, okay, it's a mindset. It's a mentality, this victim mindset. And we're right. It is uncomfortable. It is unfortunate. I didn't ask for this. It is painful. All of the above. You're absolutely right. But given the current situation we find ourselves in, given the current situation I find myself in, or you find yourself in, what can I do, however small, to get a different result, to move it in a different direction? And since I'm a communication trainer, I say start the conversation by getting curious. Emmett, how do you see it? I mean, how do you feel? I'd love to know how you feel about this. I'm not going to insert my opinion. I won't say this, but I'm thinking, I won't insert my opinion. I won't come in with how I think I'm right or any of that. I'm just going to listen to you and let you know I hear you. And I have to genuinely want to do that because we human beings are good at telling when people are faking that. So.
Especially, and I might get in trouble for this.
Okay.
But how you just phrased that approach, put me in reminiscence of men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
Heard about the book, never read it.
Oh, dude, you should read that book because it is literally about communication between two opposed entities. They have something in common, but they communicate in very different ways. Right. It opened up my relationship and made me go, oh yeah, I am kind of a tool. Or in communicating, okay. So it gives you empathy. And that's one of the things that you're saying is that you have to approach each of these conversations with a level of empathy and seeing the world outside of your own eyeballs. And one thing that goes along with that is building trust. So, why is it building trust is important, especially in these cultures where half the day we have shirts on with no pants. What I mean by that is you're on a Zoom call and you're like, they can only see me from the waist up.
And I'm at the beach.
But how can we build that trust when we don't share the air that we used to?
First of all, for me personally, I assume good intention. I assume generally at the core people generally are good. Yeah, we got bad eggs, right? Generally speaking, in my travels around the world, we human beings tend to like and want the same things for ourselves. Safety, security, cozy home, love for our children, all those things, right? We have different perspectives. So for me, the way I build trust is just to go in. People love to talk about themselves. People generally love to, and I mean that in a good way. People love it when other people are curious genuinely about what they do, how they do it, how they feel. So that's how I establish trust first, is just by engaging in a conversation with that person, whoever it is, and it's situational, how I might engage. But generally, I go in with curiosity first. How do you?
That's some of the fundamental principles from How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Exactly what you just said, which is, but everybody doesn't get that. And I think because we are living in a detached society, and I'm talking about before COVID, we were all had these little devices, these computers in our pocket that, wrapped all our attention, and it became our best friend, and we forgot about the human factor of it.
Well, there's another thing too, though, in terms of, like, say, people who don't agree on certain issues, right? That's just how we're hardwired. We see things differently. If you and I are looking out the same window in the same room and someone asks you, what do you see? And someone asks me, what do I see? We're going to clue in on different things and we're looking out the same window. How is that? It's perspective. Emmett, I don't see how you're seeing it. And you might tell me, Luis, I don't see how you're seeing it either. Man, I don't get it. But then Emmett may say, Luis, come over here and see it from my perspective. Come over here and see it from my angle. And I might, not always guaranteed, but if I put myself in your shoes, see it from your angle, or I really listen to what you're telling me and hear you, I might have that aha moment and go, oh, I see how you see it that way. I get it. But not until I get curious. And I just know, and this is what I train, it's perspectives. At the end of the day, when I used to train in the classroom, the example I would give for everybody is describe the room. It's too cold. It's too hot. It's not light enough. The snacks don't look very good. Who's this bozo standing at the front of the room? That's not a description, but you hear all kinds of things. So my point is we all have different experiences, interpretations of life, and how we see things, perspectives, points of views. That's natural. So what I like to do is engage with curiosity first, try my best to really hear and understand how somebody sees it, how they hear it, and Usually what my experience is, people will then return that and go, how do you see it, Luis? What are your thoughts about this, Luis? And when we do that, when we're able to share how we see it, and it's probably, I could even say I see it so differently than you, Emmett. Here's how I see it. It's just perspectives, right? Now, I know I don't want to make light of it, because when you start talking about race and discrimination, things like that, it's a little heavier, but I'm keeping it light just as the example. Perspectives, you see it this way, I see it this way. Now we both see how we see it. Now we have a bigger picture, if you will. Yeah. Once we have a bigger picture, we understand more details and the nuances and the emotions that come with that. Now we're better prepared to have like a more productive conversation. And I always go into any conversation, I don't care. And I'm practicing this now because I have people in my family who are close to me who are on the other side of how I value things and my political. I'm not political, but if you know. Oh. So.
That is so prevalent today.
Yes, it is. And it's very polarizing. And I always try to go in and remember at the core here, the relationship is important to me. You know, this political era will pass. All of this stuff we're going through at some point shall pass. We know that. Life changes. It's a constant. Yeah. So these people and their political ideas that are different from mine, at the core, the relationship is important to me. So I go into conversations like that, trying to enrich the relationship, even though we see it completely differently. So I'll pause there.
I'm going to pull this out.
Go for it.
And this is something that you gave me. And you said that great advice, giving great advice can harm your company culture. How is that possible?
Okay, let me share what I mean by that in context. Giving advice, first of all, science has proven, and I don't have the data with me right now, but I'll get it for you if you like, and your listeners too.
That's fine.
Okay. Science has shown that it lands, it's more effective, it's more impactful for us human beings when we come up with our own solutions to our own situations or problems, right?
I believe that.
Okay, so when I said that was more of in the context of a leader leading a team, and those team members who are maybe trying to rise in their career perhaps, or they're middle managers or maybe not, but they come up to the leader constantly seeking advice. What do I do? What should I do? How would you do this? And we all like to give advice. At least most of us do. Most people like to give advice. Why? Because we like to be helpful. So we think we're helping. But actually, it reminds me of the old adage. I'm not going to quote it right, but it's better if you teach a person how to fish rather than giving them fish. You know what I mean? You teach a person how to do it for themselves. So in the same way, you coach a person to help them come up with their own solutions rather than jumping in and giving the advice. Now, sometimes you got to give some advice. I'm kind
of harsh with it because I've had people come, hey, what do I do here? What do I do here? I'll give them about 2 takes. About the 3rd take, I'll calmly say, I need you to do me a favor. And they look at me like when they ask me for that 3rd thing, I need you to do me a favor. And they say, sure, Emmett, what's that? As they have this puzzled look on their face. I said, you know there's a problem or there's something that needs to be done, right? And they say, yes. So, and you're coming to ask me what to do, right? Yeah. I said, here, I'm kind of busy, so I need you to help me out. I need you to find a solution and then pose that to me. So come to me with solutions versus asking me a question. Give me your opinion.
Okay. Or now, so where I agree with that. And where I'm going with this is, let's say, for example, any team comes to the boss, any team member comes to the boss and says, I'm not sure what to do. I could go down this road with this initiative. I could go down this road with this initiative. Instead of me saying, well, you know what I would do if I were you? I'd go down road A because blah, 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 blah. That person may say, all right, great. And they go down that road. And what if it's great advice? Awesome. They'll come back to me for more advice. What if they fail? What if it doesn't work for them? That advice I gave them worked for me. It was wonderful. Doesn't work for them. They flop. Now, what does that do to our trust? What does that do to our relationship? Right? So Again, when I said you're talking about giving advice, I'm not talking about training. I'm not talking about step A, step B, step C. I'm talking about, I'm not sure how to move forward on this situation, this project, this initiative, or something like that. What would you do? In those cases, I don't jump to give advice. In those cases, I'll first say, let's talk about it. You got a minute, or whatever the situation is. Let's grab some lunch. Let's talk, or let's hang out and talk. Tell me what's going on. They tell you. Tell me more about that. How long has it been going on? Tell me more about that. Get the context. They tell you. Again, you notice I'm asking questions. I'm not giving advice. How's it affecting you? How's it affecting others? How's it affecting the team, the company, the coworkers? What do you feel about all that? I feel heavy. I feel I'm angry. I'm whatever it is. Now I named an emotion. Now they're feeling something. Okay. What if nothing changes? What does that look like? Okay. And what else? And what's the effect of that? Nothing changes 6 months down the road. We're having dinner again. What are you going to tell me? You're helping them paint the negative picture. Okay. All right. What do you feel about that? I'm not feeling good about that. Okay. What does the outcome look like? Okay. They tell you the outcome. What else? What else? What are you going to gain from that? Who else is going to gain and benefit from that? What else? Who else? When you think about that, what do you feel? I'm feeling empowered. I'm feeling a little bit better. Okay. So let's go back to now, what's the one step you can do to move it towards that issue? Now you already got their wheels turning. They're already thinking. You've helped them paint the negative vision. If you don't do anything about this, what's that look like? Now, what are some options? What does that look like? What are the rewards you're going to reap from that when it happens? What do you feel about that? Now, what's the one thing you can do to move it in that direction? Because it may be a big project. It may be a big initiative. They might be trying to move a mountain. What's the one thing you can do to move it in that direction? They tell you, and you haven't given any advice. Now, where it gets tricky is, let's say they tell you, okay, here's the one thing I'm going to do to move this towards the resolution I just painted for you. When I was explaining it to you, I'm going to do A, B, and C. And you hear that, and because maybe you have more tenure than them, or you know the company better than them, or whatever it is, you hear when they say that, and you go, oh no, don't do that. Somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to get fired. You're going to lose a client, whatever it is. Pull out that advice card and say, wait, I wouldn't do that. What else have you thought of? I still won't give the advice, but I'll stop them. And if they don't get it, then I'll give the advice. Hey, I would not do that. Here's why.
In this climate that we're in, it's a new landscape that we're navigating. In this new landscape, there's always fallout. And there has to be some uncomfortable conversations or difficult conversations on both sides. It could be, you can pick something and, you just have to talk about it. You can sweep it under the rug, but you'll know that it'll become a heavier, bigger monster if you sweep it under the rug. So how do we have these difficult conversations in this day and age?
Again, first of all, what's your goal in having the conversation? Is it to support? Is it to know more? Is it to help? Is it, I already said support, I don't know. Or is it to be right? Is it to look good? Is it to get your ego stroked a little bit? Is it to prove a point? What's your point? Is it to enrich a relationship? Start there. That's where I start. Because for me personally, I'm not going to speak for anybody else. If I I ask that question all the time to myself. I'm working on myself this late day and age in my life, trying to become a better person. I have gotten better at stopping myself. Now I'm going, wait a minute. Is that necessary to say? What's your goal for saying that? And I realize sometimes you just want a little spotlight. You just want to be the bright one in the room. You just want to be the clever one that's funny or whatever it is, because I know myself, right? I may stop myself at that point and say, that's totally unnecessary. I don't need to speak up. But if it is to know, I need to know more. I want to engage with this person. I want to build some trust with this person or these people. I want to see how they see it. I want to know more. I want to help. I want to support. I want to be supported.
So with some of these conversations that people are going to have in this day and age, because a lot of times it's to inform.
Okay.
And sometimes people just they can't outsize their own perspective, which means sometimes you just need to, instead of looking at it with both eyes, you might need to close one eye and look at the situation different. And then what I mean by that is socially, at work. It could even be, like you said, it could be between family members. You might have to just say, put yourself in the other person's shoes, but having those conversations still can be very difficult and straining on not only your relationship in the business, but it can have tentacles because people get in camps.
Yes, and they group with one another, right? So
Yeah.
I'll speak to that. I call it context. We all human beings, we all have a lens or a filter through which we view and experience and interpret life. This lens is formed by our opinions, our attitudes, our beliefs, our socioeconomic background, how we were raised, where we were raised, the culture we come from. All of that forms a lens through which we interpret and judge life.
Yeah.
And that's a context. So, you're raised, I just shared my history with you. I'm raised in Los Angeles, Compton, California, from a Mexican-American background, blah, blah, blah. I got a certain context, way I view life. You probably do too, based on who you are, where you were raised and all that. It's not right. It's not wrong. It's just how we are. And we believe anything that matches our context. Yeah, I believe that, they believe it too, or we agree, or whatever it is. It validates us and we get to be right. See, I told you so. But as soon as something doesn't match or validate our context about it, we block it. So, simple example. 2 times I went to a restaurant and the hostess was very rude to me when I was picking up my to-go order. That's how I interpret it. She didn't smile. She didn't look at me. She threw me my food. Took my, it's just, and I trained customer service soft skills. And I told my friend who also frequents that restaurant, I'm like, man, that lady, I don't know what's up with her. He goes, oh my gosh, she is so sweet. She is so nice. That's Rosie. Dude, do you know what she's going through right now? Her kid, is going through drug addiction. Her husband died and then I start to realize I had a context around her. And that context was, she's this, she's that, she's that, based on 2 experiences that I had with her. I formed a context. Now translate that experience, that example I gave, to the workplace. Okay, people aren't getting promoted. I see a name that looks like something, and I got another name on an application here. I'm gonna go with that one. That's, unconscious bias. There's another conversation that's coming up in the workplace.
Yeah,
So
that is a big one.
It's coming from a context. I see a name that looks like something, and I have a context, and I interpret that as, if you know what I mean, right? I'll see a name, and I develop a vision in my head of what that person probably, according to my context, is going to look like, act like, sound like, talk like, etc., based on past experiences I've had, and we know that's not necessarily true. So that's another way of coming at conversations, knowing I got a context. I can't help it. It was formed by how I was raised, and they have one too. Let's see. Let's expand our context.
So what are you doing in this time? How can people reach you? Are you doing anything online? Are you having any workshops, any streams that people can buy into? What's going on in your life?
I'm glad you have. Yeah. So I work with, and I'm a lead for delivery and training of Fierce Conversations. Fierce, F-I-E-R-C-E. Keeping it real. Say what you got to say. Come out from behind yourself, come into the conversation, and make it real. But we do that in a way that enriches relationships, right? So I work for Fierce. I love talking about all this stuff. Everything we've talked about today kind of relates to that. That's what I do. That's what I train. So I would like to draw everybody's attention to our website. There's resources there that you can get for free. So if you're a leader, if you'd like to transform communication in your team or organization, make it more effective, any communication skills, including what we've been talking about today, microaggressions, all those things, bias in the workplace, go to fierce.com, Fierce Inc., FIERCEINC.com/resources. There's a ton of resources there that you can get for free, including 9 fun ways to stay connected while working remotely, which a lot of us are doing now, full time. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I love to expand my network on LinkedIn. So connect with me, linkedin.com/IN/Luis Gonzáles. Look forward to connecting with you there. Emmett, That's what I have to say. Thank you.
I want to go one. I just thought of something. I want to go a little bit deeper. We have this narrative that has changed in the last, I'd say, 5 years, where let's say I meet you at a conference and I walk up to you and I refer to you as in the third person by somebody else. I was like, yeah, that guy, he's pretty cool. And you get offended because that's not your pronoun. How do we have these conversations regarding pronouns and personal approach?
I'm gonna go back to ask and get curious because I have stepped in those minefields. I have walked through. I have experienced that. I have wrong pronoun. I have maybe not offended people, but yeah, I got mud on my face. I just come in and say, I am so sorry. That wasn't my intention. Please help me understand how I should call you. And you know what? We need to forgive ourselves a little bit. We're gonna make mistakes. I'm going to call people something that they don't want to be called. I'm sorry, that wasn't my intention. Please help me understand what you want to be called. I'll move forward with that. So I go easy on myself with that. I'm sorry. I can't know everything about everybody. I'm going to make some mistakes. Give me a little leeway here because you know what? My intentions are good.
You know, I'm the same way. And I try to be conscious of when I approach people. And it's sometimes awkward because I've asked someone, what's your pronoun? And they gave me the pronoun that my eyes indicated. Then they were offended that I asked them their pronoun because they think I might have thought they were something else.
What I'm going to say about that. Go ahead.
And I said, look, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to be conscious. Yeah. And they were like, oh, I was like, come on, just, you know, it's a mistake.
Yeah. It's tricky, especially now, really tricky. I live on the West Coast. Based in Seattle. We were talking about San Francisco. I'm in California. It's very much a reality for us right now. But look, I mentioned assumptions a few minutes ago. It's just what we do as human beings. We will assume, we will continue to fill in the blanks. We will continue to assume. But for me, the key is recognizing that we do that and recognizing when we do that. And you know what? I'm going to step in the mud sometimes. I'm going to beg forgiveness and say, I'm sorry, that wasn't my intention. And do the best I can, man. I'm sure I'll step on some toes at some point, but I try not to.
Hey, I want to thank you so much for being on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you as well. Look, it was a ball. I loved it. Thank you, man.
Cool. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how we roll out. I want you guys to remember something. We are human beings. I'm going to say this again. We are human beings. We are people under a sun that gives us color. That is the hue part. H-U-E. We are in the image of man. And here's where we get tripped up. The being part. We're having an experience. See what I said? It's an experience. And it changes from moment to moment. It's up to you to be conscious and know that you're having an experience, because as human beings, we can do anything. We have to connect it with emotion and intelligence and spirituality. Because if you think about it from all three perspectives, the mind, body, and spirit, that's what connects us all together. We are like stars in the sky. When you get hungry, it's not you that gets hungry, it's your cells, which constitute the self. So here's what I want you to do. Next time an entity walks by you, or you're engaged with an entity that has selves that constitutes their self like you, treat them with love, honor, and respect. Till next time, love you all. Peace.